He left me on a roadside, a one-way ticket, a farm, and the unexpected miracle of dignity. Chapter 1. Final Destination. Get Lost. When he slammed the car door, it sounded like the grand finale of a symphony, one where every instrument was me. Adrian, naturally, delivered the performance of his life. The sharp click, the walk-off without a glance back, the perfect inflection that said, "Well then, let's see how you manage. Don't miss me too much." The car tore off like an action hero, leaving a fiery explosion behind. Except it wasn't the street that blew up. It was my soul. Or maybe not the soul, maybe the heart, or my dignity. Though to be fair, that last one was still waving faintly from beneath my sandal. The taillights vanished around the bend, leaving behind a swirl of dust and the faint scent of expensive diesel, delicately seasoned with humiliation. The dust hung in the air, cinematic, almost beautiful. I could have admired the aesthetics if I didn't feel like collapsing straight into the pavement. Somewhere behind me, someone laughed. Pierre? Mark? Maybe both? Laughter at a moment like that is like a hairline crack across a glass display window. You don't see it coming, but the next touch, and everything shatters. I didn't turn around. I didn't have the strength. That laugh wasn't just sound. It was a diagnosis. And I knew it wasn't good news. I stood there like someone who just realized the map they've been following doesn't lead to treasure, but to their own spectacular failure. My legs, jelly, my arms, dead weight. Inside me, a drum. Or maybe the hum of a subway car rumbling through my chest. I thought, maybe if I found the right tone, warm, not too hurt, with a dash of vulnerability, he'd stop. Step out, walk back, pull me into an embrace. There'd even be music, or at the very least, the poetic swirl of Tuscan dust. But no, the car didn't come back. Nobody did, except me, right back into those ridiculous, dusty memories I should have unsubscribed from years ago. Evening in Italy smelled of dry earth and tired sunlight. A clear message. "Ma'am, take your drama elsewhere. We've got sunsets, fresh basil, and tourists to entertain. You're like lemon juice in a cappuccino." Somewhere nearby, wooden shutters banged shut, firmly, with purpose. That's how windows close. That's how relationships close, too. The Italians do it in seconds. Mine took years. I don't even remember how it started. No loud noise, no single word. Just a shadow that collapsed inward. And suddenly, I was 8 again. Lion. Dad shuts the door. Not as dramatically as Adrian, but with the same finality. He's not coming back. His jacket lands on a chair. Mom doesn't cry. She just sags, like a boxer who's been hit one too many times. And I stood in the hallway with the dumbest thought. It's my fault. No one ever said that aloud. But the feeling of being the unnecessary comma in someone else's argument seeps into your skin. And now, 20 years and 1,000 kilometers later, I'm standing in the middle of an Italian street thinking the same thing. Maybe I asked the wrong question, or asked it in the wrong tone. Old scripts are like mold. Even if you paint over the walls, it finds a way in. And yet, oddly, I didn't cry. Maybe I was conserving tears, or maybe I just ran out. What I felt was a strange, inside-out lightness, like someone in me finally whispered, "Claire, you're alone again. Accept it. It's the check for the dinner you didn't order." And of course, that's when the good memories show up. Those glowing snapshots that always arrive right on time to make things worse. Me, Adrian in Venice, gelato, gondolas, him acting goofy, me pretending to be annoyed. I thought, this is how it's supposed to be. No one tells you those bright moments can turn into hooks. And suddenly, you're a fish on dry land, gasping, thinking, But he loved me. Back then, right? Sometimes the past versions of people don't leave. They linger like phantom pain, and you keep hoping the real version is still the one who held your hand on St. Mark's Square, not the one who drove off without even turning off the GPS. I looked around. Empty street. A flickering lamp overhead, twitching like a nerve. Then the stupidest idea flashed through my head. Run. Yep. Just like that, in a dress, sandals slapping against the cobblestones. Maybe I'd catch him. Maybe he was waiting, just out of sight. I even took a step, but stopped. I'm not 8. This isn't Lion, and I don't need anyone to turn around to make my life real again. I exhaled, deep, slow, like I was breathing a new language I was just beginning to learn. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't ask myself what I did wrong. Instead, I asked, maybe that's enough? Chapter 2. Holding Pattern. Activated. Brain. Rebooting. He'll come back, I whispered, at first to myself, like someone who left a kettle on and hopes it'll magically turn itself off before everything goes up in smoke. Then I said it a little louder. Loud enough for the 2 guys at the next cafe table to look up. One gave me the, did she say he or heat, face? The other leaned in with the kind of interest usually reserved for live astrology readings. I blushed. Not from shame, but more from the realization that apparently my inner meltdown had gone public. Good evening. Welcome to Radio Claire. Coming to you live with weather updates, minor delusions, and the ongoing belief in miracles despite a full magician shortage. I didn't move. Like one of those old computers that freeze but try to look busy so you won't unplug them. Time didn't pass. It stalled, then limped. Then, just to be rude, seemed to whisper, let's die slowly on this pavement, just you and me, sweetheart. The cafe clock was ancient, with a dial that stubbornly insisted, you're not losing it, the whole world is, including me. I stared at the second hand like it was a countdown to patience breakdown. Each tick was a taunt. He's coming any minute now. Any minute now. Just kidding. Minutes stretched like gum stuck to a shoe. They clung to my skirt, my hair, my self-worth, and dragged everything down. After an hour, I felt 5 years older. By hour 1.5, I was spiritually aligned with the baker lady across the street, who, by the way, had a killer robe and the aura of a woman who wouldn't wait around for a man unless he personally invented yeast. The light faded. Not dramatically, more like someone slowly erased me along with the sidewalk. Streetlights blinked on one by one, like birthday candles on a cake no one ordered. Yellow circles on the pavement became little stages, but I was the actress with no lines and no scene partner. Just me, standing. Like I had at 8 years old, in Lion, at the window. Dad gone, Mom silent. Me, guilty. Flashback. Deluxe, automatic, no skip button. 20 years and several borders later, and I was still doing the ritual. Wait. Just with a better backdrop, this time, a cafe in Italy. And the same ridiculous gut feeling. Just a little longer. Maybe this time, it'll change. Memory's a comedian, a cruel one. While I stood there collecting drafts and self-pity, it served up a greatest hits montage. Adrian at the train station, laughing, running toward me, arms open, shouting, I always choose you. Adrian in front of the bookshop, mock pouting, kissing me as I'd just come back from the ISS, with no helmet but holding a baguette, and I stood like a moviegoer who loved the first half of the film, only to discover the second half was written by a therapist with unresolved issues. That version of Adrian? Gone. We're now on Adrian 2.0, now you see. Him, now you don't. The Houdini edition. No note, no clue, just a masterclass in vanishing. Night fell softly, like a foreign song I didn't understand. Not because I'm dumb. Because when your heart's in your shoes, language files go missing. Scooters zipped by like arguments in a fight you already lost. Neon signs shouted in bold italics. Where's your life? Buy a coffee? Buy gelato? Buy a point, woman. I was foreign to everything, even myself. Even the smell of gas felt more familiar than my own thoughts. I had 80 euros, tucked in the hidden pocket of my bag, like a farewell note from Common Sense. Cards? Adrian had them, along with the last shreds of his conscience. I touched the bills once or twice, as if they might whisper, "You're still here. You're not a ghost. You still matter." Somewhere inside, anger stirred. Not glamorous anger, not Instagram anger. No, mine was dry, gray, dusty, like the bottom of your boots after you've walked too far for someone who wouldn't take one step for you. But it helped. Anger always does. More than therapy sometimes. I was broken, but I was upright. Because falling. That would have made it too easy for him. I understood everything. Not right away, but eventually. This wasn't random, not a heat of the moment thing. It was a performance, directed, scripted, down to the last shrug. He wrote the scene long ago. I was just the background prop. No lines. One direction. Stand, stare, don't ruin the shot. The room above the bakery welcomed me like a flower opening in the dark. Squeaky stairs, the smell of bread. A silence that didn't press down. It just was. And I realized, home isn't walls. It's a place where no one asks why all of you hurt. The landlady didn't speak, but her silence said, "You're safe, at least for tonight." I broke the panini into pieces like it was sacred. A bite in the morning, a bite in the evening, like a birthday cake on a day that shouldn't be celebrated. I chewed slowly, tasted the past, gave thanks for the present. I wasn't eating. I was trying to believe that I deserved something. Even just this little piece. Even just this night. Chapter 3. Engaged to Reality. On the third day, I woke up with a clear thought. It's time to be a grown-up woman. Not the kind who sits on a windowsill with a bottle of wine and a blanket quoting, "I'll be fine." But the kind who walks into a police station with a face that says, "Let's just get this done." I came here for the paperwork, not the tea. The police station turned out to be a place where hope doesn't die alone. It dies in line. The walls peeling, tiles like Grandma's kitchen only without the pie, all lit by the cold glow of neon despair. The officer who took my statement looked like someone whose wife isn't at home. His printer is, and they're heading for divorce. He held his pen with the kind of longing someone uses after their heart has been broken by a ballpoint. He wrote quickly, in neat columns. I imagined he had Excel open in his mind. He didn't ask. "What happened, mademoiselle?" He asked. "How many digits are in your passport number?" Voice flat, eyes diverted, one eyebrow on vacation. I tried to speak clearly, no sobbing, no collapsing into melodrama. This was not a casting call for poor but loving heroine. But inside me, something still cracked, not at his indifference, but at how effortlessly it settled into my story. He'd heard this 1,000 times. The woman leaves with the man. Man vanishes, woman left behind. Card blocked. Heart isn't. And no one cares anymore. I left with a piece of paper that won't save you. A piece of paper that listed my disappearance as a line item in someone's ledger. Even a Google form would have felt more humane. I stepped outside, looked at the street, thought, all right. If the world isn't coming to rescue me, then I'll save myself. And there I stood in front of the pawn shop. The sign looked like it had been punched in. The light flickered. The letters looked erased. The shop window, a museum of abandoned faith. Watches, chains, rings. A little graveyard of feelings, visited without flowers. I pushed the door open. It creaked as if to whisper, "Are you sure?" The floor moaned under my shoes. The walls were silent. The air smelled of metal and last night's defeat. I took out the ring. My wedding ring. Adrian gave it to me on our 5th anniversary. Small Italian restaurant, rain, candles, his look, then full of something real. I thought, this means safe. This means forever. This means armor. Spoiler, it wasn't armor. It was a receipt for a lived illusion. The ring in my palm was cold, slightly dull, like our relationship at the end. I laid it on the counter as though handing over an organ. Maybe I was. The jeweler looked at me like I'd just brought another teaspoon to the happiness expired collection. He was silent, took the ring, weighed it, evaluated, shook his head, gave me a number. The number wasn't insulting, it was realistic. Yes, 3 times less than it was worth. But enough to buy a ticket, to say, thanks, but I'm no longer part of this circus. I took the money without counting. I didn't need to know the exact price. I knew the main thing. This was a ticket, not a back. Not to Paris. Not into the same mistake with a different date. But forward. Into nowhere. Into my own. I'm not sure what yet. But definitely not this. Not home. Because home is gone. Because if you leave it with empty hands and a full heart of pain, you don't go back. I bought the right to choose. I sold the ring and bought myself. Chapter 4. Escape manual, one-way ticket, and a little bit of air. The bus station smelled like coffee and exhaustion. Not the kind you sleep off, but the kind that settles in your shoulders and refuses to move out. The neon lights flickered as if they were debating whether to keep shining or finally give up. The electronic board lazily flipped through the names of cities, Rome, Bari, Patras, Thessaloniki, like options in a game called Pick Your Disappointment. Each name flashed for a second, a hope, a mirage, or just a glitch in the system. I stared at the board, waiting for one of those cities to whisper, "Come here." People crowded the ticket counters, tired, tense, collected in that life happens sort of way. Suitcases, plastic bags, backpacks with questionable stitching. Each person carries their own version of salvation. An old lady counted coins as if exact math could save her destiny. A teenager tapped at his phone screen like he was trying to send a message through sheer force. A man argued. A woman sang to a child. The whole scene was foreign and painfully familiar, like every bus station in every city on Earth. I stepped up to the window and said, quietly, as if speaking my name for the first time, "Greece." It came out like a whisper of new life, like saying yes to a question you didn't know someone had finally asked. I handed over the bills, the ones reality gave me in exchange for a ring, and the woman slid a ticket toward me. Not a ticket, a paper amulet saying, "You're really leaving. This is more than escape. This is a departure." On the bus, I chose the seat by the window. From there, you can always see what you're leaving behind. My backpack rested on my knees, everything I had left. Literally. Symbolically. The engine hummed to life. The glass caught the reflection of the street. The street turned into an unspooling ribbon of light. Gas stations, fields, random villages with signs no one reads drifted past like forgotten chapters. Inside, the bus had its own atmosphere. Someone ate, someone snored, someone argued on the phone, someone cried. The smells mingled, coffee, chips, cheap perfume, strangers' lives, and I was in between between the woman I used to be and the one who was only beginning to guess what her voice sounded like without interruption. At every stop, someone got off. Someone got on. But I stayed. Not because I knew where I was going, but because I finally knew where I wasn't going back to. The ferry waited like a mythical beast, huge, glowing, noisy. The ramps trembled under our weight, and I held my ticket so tightly you'd think it might crumble. I stepped on board and understood instantly. This was a border, not between countries, between me and myself. Back there, I left my silence, my guilt, my compliance. Here, on this rocking deck, were wind and waves and one unwritten version of me. Inside the ferry, it was freezing. I wrapped myself in a jacket that wasn't up for the task and curled into a chair that didn't care. Families were everywhere. Loud, tired, gloriously alive. They ate, argued, shushed children, and shared blankets. I envied them, quietly, not bitterly, just the simple ache of someone who has no one to straighten her sweater. I had only my little backpack, only myself, only air. I barely slept. Sometimes the rhythm of the waves sounded like a lullaby, but sleep slipped through my fingers. I stared at the ceiling, at the dark, at the ache inside me, thinking, I'm going somewhere I've never been. Maybe that's exactly where I'll hear myself again. Dawn revealed the shore, white houses clinging to the cliffs, blue shutters, smoke drifting from chimneys. Just like a postcard, except this one didn't lie. The sunlight touched the rooftops like a painter setting highlights. And my phone. It let out one short sound, flickered, and died. No messages, no missed calls, no sorry, no, where are you? Just silence. And freedom. I exhaled, slowly, deeply, my first real breath in months. Hunger nudged me forward. I stepped onto the stone pier, shoes sliding over salt-slick rock, the air full of ropes clinking, gulls screaming, boats creaking. Life swirled around me, noisy, imperfect, utterly present. I wasn't invisible anymore, just slightly transparent from the journey, but human. In the evening, the sea turned pink, the sky copper. I stood at the end of the pier and thought, I have no idea what comes next, but I'm here, and for now, that's enough. Adrian wanted to keep me by tethering me with fear, but without meaning to, he gave me the only thing he never possessed, the ability to walk away. Chapter 5: 7 Spoons of Soup and One Reason to Stay. By the third day, my legs staged a walkout. No warning, no picket sign. They just refused to carry me, so I collapsed onto the dusty lane like a tragic hero in some ancient play. Only without the chorus, without the costumes. Dust rose in a dry cloud, stinging my throat, sticking to my sweaty skin. The ground beneath me was hot enough to fry an egg. The sun? Relentless, like an ex calling at office hours with her phone on Do Not Disturb. The olive trees twisted and stretched toward the sky as though they were old philosophers who'd seen everything and decided to stop intervening. In my ears, a hum, like an old refrigerator. The air turned thick, then blackness. Silence. A plunge. When I woke, it took a moment. The world flickered back into focus like an overexposed photograph. The first face I saw was lined, sunburnt like parchment, but with eyes clear as a mountain spring. Eleni, she said, not asked, not offered, not imposed, just placed the name gently, as though tucking a pillow beneath my head. Behind her stood another figure, tall, solid, hands that bore the story of the land. Nikos. He said nothing, just laid his hand on Eleni's shoulder, and that was enough. They spoke in their own language. To me, it sounded like stones tumbling in a stream, but I heard everything I needed: care, experience, calm. Then hands. Hands that lifted me. Wooden, rough, calloused, yet oddly tender. They led me slowly, step by step, and I moved, or perhaps I floated between them, like some orphaned cargo they refused to dump overboard. The farm appeared as though out of a dream. Whitewashed walls, a roof red as an August orange. The gate squeaked like Grandma's, "Oh!" The yard, free-range chickens, a goat, dust. The air smelled of thyme, hay, and stone, tasting of vintage wine, dense, full of old stories. The house was simple, boxy, honest. Not a home, but a refuge. Inside the kitchen, it was cool. Sunlight filtered through floral curtains, painted warm patches on the floor. The walls were thick, the wooden table scarred by years of meals, writing the history of hands. Eleni handed me a glass of water. Cold. I drank it like a pledge. Little sips, gratitude in every swallow. Then a bowl, soup, potatoes, zucchini, a hint of lemon, a drop of oil, steam rising like a whispered prayer. One spoonful, and I felt my body again. Another spoon, and my mind whispered, maybe I won't run anymore. By spoon number 7 I understood. I didn't want to go on anymore. I tried to explain, with gestures, half looks. I'm sorry, I can't stay. I'm leaving. Really, I'm already almost out the door. But my legs shook. They looked the part of retired soldiers. Eleni nodded toward my battered feet, shook her head, in her eyes. You're not leaving, not because you can't, but because you shouldn't. Nikos sliced bread, slow, deliberate, like a peace treaty. He placed it before me with a soft smile, like someone who knows how to wait. Then Eleni said, stay. That word, simple, English, with a Greek accent and a force I'd never heard in any of my previous please let me stay speeches. And I did. Not because I couldn't walk away. Because, for the first time in a long time, I didn't want to. Because in their quiet looks, in their silence, in their soup, there was space. For me. Chapter 6. How Hands and Hearts Come Alive a Little Later. Morning in Eleni's house didn't begin with words. It began with light. The shutters creaked open, as though the house itself stretched after sleep, and golden bands of sunlight poured across the floor. Like the curtain drawn back at the theater's first act. The kitchen filled with the scent of bread, not yet baked, but already promising warmth. And with coffee, strong, bittersweet, like the kind of conversation about the past no one starts, yet everyone senses. Nikos brewed it in a scratched Turkish pot, conducting the household's dawn like a conductor leading a small orchestra. The hiss of boiling water, the knife's scrape on wood, the step beat of movement. This coffee was not a drink. It was an assurance. The day begins, which means everything's as it should be. I was learning, slowly, by touch, collecting warm eggs, carefully, as if I were holding someone's trust. Hanging out washing, the sheets flapping in the breeze like the sails of the ship I never boarded. Telling time from tansy, burdock from basil, a whole world where leaves knew more than I did. My fingers were cut. My palms throbbed. I was angry with myself for the forgotten body that now ached like a slighted child. But each evening, Eleni brought a little jar, a balm made of wax and herbs. She took my hands, without asking, and rubbed in the ointment. Quietly, without words, as though she knew. Someone once soothed her that way. One day, passing through the large room, I saw a photograph. Old, a little discolored. The frame, crooked, like a smile masking pain. In the picture, Nikos, young, back straight as a promise, and Eleni, radiant, her hand on her belly. They both looked into the lens like people who didn't yet know that time takes things away. In the background, the same olive trees, only there was more light and less shadow. I didn't ask. In this house, questions weren't asked. They were released like birds. If they wanted, they'd come back. Since then, I began to see them differently. How they place food in front of me, not out of politeness, but as if I were something precious, lost, and to be protected. How Nikos adjusts the tool in my hand, not impatiently, but with a slow tenderness you won't find in manuals. How Eleni wraps my wrists in bandages as though saving not just skin, but something deeper. And then I understood. Their care is not just kindness. It's memory. It's pain that cannot be named, yet speaks through every gesture. Through me, they were reaching someone who cannot be returned. And perhaps, and this is the thing I lacked all my life, acceptance that asks no explanation. Chapter 7. Salt on the fingers and a taste that doesn't fade. Nikos taught me to comb the olives. That's the word he used. Comb, not collect. It sounded odd, as though the tree were a child's head and its branches unruly curls. But once I tried it, everything clicked. He demonstrated with slow, deliberate gestures. A wooden rake angled across branches. When you did it right, the fruit would fall gently. If you did it wrong, the twigs snapped. I listened to that rustle like music. Rush, rush, crack. Rush, rush, pause. Rush, rush, the thump of olives into the basket. It wasn't just labor. It was a letter to the tree, and it answered. Nikos's hands, rough, sun-scarred, warm. He guided mine, without intruding, like a father teaching a daughter to swim. Not telling, but holding. He smelled of earth, skin, and olive oil. I half expected the trees to fall silent the moment he left the grove. He suited them perfectly. The olives slid into the baskets like black drops of ink. The air had a tang, a little metallic. By evening, even with my hands washed, I still felt it. Salt, oil, quiet weight, as though the tree had imprinted its signature on my palms. And in the evening, the bread. Eleni kneaded the dough like she was summoning rain. No balance, no scale. A handful, exactly enough. A pinch of salt, not more, not less. A drop of oil, measured by tone, not grams. She would say, "The dough speaks when it's ready." At first I laughed. Then I understood. Yes, it speaks. Under my palms, I felt it coming alive, resisting, then yielding, then beginning to pulse like something alive. This was a conversation, wordless but true. When the bowl was covered with the white cloth and the dough began its rise, in the house fell a ritual silence. Eleni sat beside me, said nothing, waited, and I waited with her. In that silence, I found more comfort than in 100 well-meaning words. Dinner was not a celebration. It meant cheese softening in the sun, tomatoes, not red, but flame bright, olives, bitter, wrinkled like the faces of the trees, wine, simple, clear, fierce, and the bread. That bread, hot, rough-edged crust, impossible not to bite. We didn't eat at a table, we ate at a moment. Sometimes sitting on a stone, sometimes at a patchworked plank whose cracks smelled of pine. They spoke in Greek. I didn't understand the words. But I heard, when Eleni's voice softened, Nikos leaned in closer. When he grunted, she squinted. And I smiled with them, clueless at the language but knowing, no one here lies. In that simplicity, I tasted life, not as a project, not as a goal, but as a flavor, like wine's bite, like salt on fingers after a day in the field. Here I was no one, and yet myself. Here, no one asked you to be strong, or pretty, or flawless. You could be warm, tired, quiet, and it was enough. That evening, breaking a piece of bread, I suddenly realized the world hadn't collapsed. It was just that before, I was sitting at someone else's table. Chapter 8. Coin, Lavender, and the Colors of Freedom. One day, the three of us went down to the village square. It was market day. The whitewashed houses gleamed under the sun. The air trembled with laughter, calls, and smells. The scent of freshly baked bread mingled with the sharp smell of herbs, thyme and oregano spilling from paper bags. The stalls were like a patchwork quilt. Yellow lemons, fire-red tomatoes, bunches of dried peppers hanging like fiery garlands. Over there, rounds of cheese, white and blue-veined, giving off a tart perfume that made passers-by pause and whisper. We set up our makeshift table, bottles of golden oil and bars of lavender soap. The glass caught the sun. The passers-by stopped, sniffed, touched, asked Nikos questions, with that earnest curiosity you find in small villages. Each purchase seemed tiny, a handful of coins, sometimes a crumpled banknote. But in those gestures was something noble, something I had never found in Parisian salons. An old man lifted a bottle to the light, nodded, and muttered his approval. A woman asked me where the lavender came from, and I stammered my answer in my fractured Greek. Eleni smiled, as though nudging me forward. With each attempt, I felt I was reclaiming a piece of space, my right to be heard here. Time raced by unnoticed, in the clink of coins, the rustle of canvas bags, the loud greetings across the square. And when Nikos placed a crumpled banknote in my palm, the result of the day, I felt a sting in my eyes. That scrap of paper cost more than all of Adrian's gifts. It wasn't a whim, not a showy gesture, but the fruit of my hands, my labor, my breath. It was my first independent income in many years, and with it I felt a stolen freedom return. In my memory flickered the jewelry and dresses Adrian gave me, luxurious evenings where every laugh was bought with something invisible. None of those precious things weighed as much as that crumpled banknote. It became proof. I exist, on my own. We walked back from the square along a narrow street, the echoes of market voices still humming in our ears. I inhaled the scents of lavender and bread, and I understood. These colors, these smells, these faces were reforming me. From a woman waiting for recognition, I was becoming a woman who chooses. And now, sharing meals and chores, I sensed it. I was no longer a guest, no longer a random passerby. I had become part of their life. My breathing matched the rhythm of their days. My thoughts grew calmer in the simplicity of their routines. And in my pocket, rustling and warming, lay that crumpled banknote, a quiet bell of my new life. Chapter 9. Contract, Thorns, and a One-Way Ticket. Months passed. My body and soul settled into this new rhythm, like an old familiar clock, only without the chimes and with much less show. I learned to read the land like a book, only without volumes full of intrigue and high stakes. My hands now knew the exact weight of an olive basket, the rough rope that ties branches, the mild burn of sun on my neck. Thanks, SPF 0 how, and how patiently to wait. For dough to rise, for the golden thread of oil to settle in the bottle, for the cicadas to sing not "it's over," but "we're almost there." The market ceased being a stranger zone for me. At first, they let me in with suspicion. Who's this with the crate under her arm? But now they call me by name. When someone smiled without condescension, I grasped something new. Recognition doesn't hinge on a ring or headlines in a salon. Recognition comes when you simply do. Then one evening, I came home with bags and thought, Paris, you were charming. But you were a performance. Those nights with Adrian when he looked at me like I was the one and only. Like the right shade of nail polish. And now I recognized. I was one of those who know the value of potatoes, of bread, of air that doesn't demand applause. And then, the letter. 3 short lines. I know where you are. I will come for you. No hi, no emoji, not even an I love you. Just a businesslike ultimatum. You're there. Be ready. I'm coming. The flower in the kitchen hung suspended, like a memory of all those evenings I believed in forever. Now it simply drifted, reminding me. Forever is a suitcase too heavy to carry. 3 nights, I barely slept. My dreams were like a badly dubbed film. Anxiety, engine noise, clock ticks that didn't care. The wind against the shutters, as if it whispered, he's close. The road, as if it said, don't forget, you're not a boy. And I stayed silent, because fear is inaudible when you're too tired to yell. And he arrived. Dust flew under the tires of his rental car, every sunbeam emphasizing, yes, it's you again. Nico straightened, tool in hand. Yes, he wasn't merely the farmer. He was the guardian of my freedom. Eleni came out, arms crossed, a strong stance. I thought, here he is, champion of returns. But in this round, there is no bout. I wiped my hands on my apron, better than those damp palms of waiting. The dough rested in its bowl, as though it knew. Right now it's me, not bread, that matters. I inhaled, a mixture of flour, olives, and air that whispers, start with you. Adrian stepped out. His footsteps scraped gravel as if rehearsed for effect. Dark glasses, ironed shirt. He looked like a city sign planted in a jasmine garden. His scent, leather and wood, like old furniture where the light's gone out. He asked, Claire, what have they done to you? You're coming with me. I smiled. Not a laugh. A recognition, I have already taken my step. Nothing. They taught me. Labor. Dignity. I pulled out the contract, the one with Eleni and Nikos, the partnership. 1/3 of the farm is registered in my name. My hands didn't shake. I handed over the paper like the ticket to my next chapter. He smirked, a smile like an envelope with nothing inside. Be serious. You'll regret this. I remembered Lake Como. His promise, with me, you'll never lack. I believed it then and bought the ticket to a party where I didn't know the entry fee. Now I know. I set the price myself. Maybe, but it will be my choice. You lost me back in Italy. Silence filled the yard, like a phone switched off. Nico stood with his tool. Eleni watched. They were as judges, but not of a court, of a home where home means you can just be. I pulled the envelope. The paper crunched. Divorce papers. His smile vanished. He removed his glasses. In his eyes, anger and fear. Fear of losing control. The car waited. The engine exhaled like a last breath. But I didn't move, because for the first time I didn't wonder. Where to run? I thought, where do I want to go? He turned, slammed the door, and left. He left dust and the hiss of the engine. I stood still. Nikos moved closer, his hand on my shoulder. You chose. You stood. Eleni nodded. Here we respect those who say no. I closed that chapter and opened the next. Chapter 10. When silence speaks louder than all the doors. I stood in the courtyard for a long time, motionless. The stones under my sandals held the day's heat. The midday light draped the walls in a golden veil, and the breeze carried the scent of olive trees and dry herbs. I felt a strange calm. I had closed the chapter that held me captive. The weight of Adrian's silence, his absences, my own concessions, all of it was leaving. In that stillness, childhood memories came alive. A door slammed one winter evening, my mother's cry, my father's departing steps. I stood in the hallway thinking, it's my fault. If only I had been better, he would have stayed. Since then, I never learned to say no. I tried to earn love, simply so I wouldn't be abandoned. But today, I did the opposite. I let go of the one who bound me. And for the first time, I felt not loneliness, but liberation. In the evening, at the village cafe, the eyes around me grew a little softer, almost caring. They served me a glass of wine without asking. No questions, but everyone knew. Here, news is shared without words, in how they set the cup on the table, in a quick gesture of the hand. The waitress smiled conspiratorially, and that smile carried more meaning than thousands of empty toasts. At the next table, an old man tipped his hat, meeting my gaze. A little further away, a girl handed me a handful of olives, as if she said, "Now you're one of us." Those small acts touched me more deeply than the applause I once heard in upscale soirees. When I returned home under the arch of the starry sky, I realized I was no longer a stranger. The village, once wary, then friendly, now accepted me without words. And the word dignity, learned among the dust of that yard, had become my most precious treasure, something no one can ever take from me. I speak to you now without adornments, as one does late at night in the kitchen, cradling a mug of tea while the darkness makes words more honest than daylight. I don't wish to persuade anyone or pretend I'm stronger than I am. I am simply opening the door to my story, and perhaps it will echo with yours. I've walked through dusty roads, through the cold silences of marriage, through glances loaded with condemnation without understanding. I waited for hours, sometimes days, for someone who never came. I thought I was lost, and yet I'm still here, whole, though my scars sometimes speak louder than my victories. They told me abandonment was the end. I grew up with that thought in my blood, from the evening my father's door slammed, and standing in the hallway, I decided I was to blame. For years, I confused love with pleading, stayed when I should have left, and kept silent when I should have shouted. I believed to be kept one must endure everything, but I learned abandonment can become a beginning. Adrian thought he would silence me. His disappearances, his restrained anger, his care, masked in control, would break me. In truth, he left me space, where for the first time I heard myself. Quietly, timidly at first, like the voice of a child often interrupted, then clearer, stronger, as a fabric rekindled. What I found on the farm, where the wind wanders beside Eleni and Nikos, was not just a refuge. It was not shelter from fear or shame. It became proof we have the right to rise again, to begin anew, even when everything seems over. In their simple gestures, a glass of water, a bowl of soup, a hand that covered mine, there was more truth than in all the vows I once heard. And if I tell you this now, it is because I know many of us carry the same invisible wounds. Perhaps you heard the snap of a door closing too soon. Perhaps you believed you were not good enough to be kept. I don't promise easy roads or loud victories. I only say there is always a place to breathe again, and there are small moments that can restore the light. I tell this not to glorify my strength, but to hold you a mirror. Each of us has had a wound you couldn't see, a place you weren't given, a word that wasn't spoken in your defense. These wounds can shut us down or become a push. I realized nobody but us decides whether we deserve a full life. It's a quiet conquest, but it changes everything. So, I invite you, share a fragment of your story. Write about how you held on or how you fell and stood again. Those words, like stones in a river, will connect with others and become light for someone who doubts. They say revolutions are born on the streets. I believe they're born in hearts when someone decides, enough. So write, share. Your truth is a value. Perhaps it will become the spark for another tomorrow. I raise my glass not for the past, but for the future we write together, in this invisible circle where everyone finally claims their place.